calling his people what? His apostate people, he's calling them a harlot because they're committing these abominations in their midst, the abominations of the nations. I want you to notice that God's people had attired themselves with all these jewels of gold and silver and wanted to attract attention to themselves. Notice Ezekiel chapter 16 and verse 17. Don't forget all these details. We're going to come back to them. Ezekiel 16 and verse 17. You also have taken your beautiful jewelry from my gold and my silver, which I had given you, and made for yourself male images and played the harlot with them. What did they use the gold and silver for? To make what? To make jewelry, to attract attention to themselves. Notice Ezekiel chapter 23 and verse 40. You should also read Ezekiel 23. The whole chapter is parallel to Ezekiel 16. It says there in Ezekiel 23 verse 40, furthermore, you sent for men to come from afar, to whom a messenger was sent, and they came, and you washed yourself for them, painted your eyes, and adorned yourself with what? With ornaments. Did this harlot deck herself with gold and silver and precious stones? Absolutely. To attract attention to whom? To God? No, to attract attention to herself. And she plays the harlot according to Scripture. She fornicated with the nations. Several of these nations are mentioned in Ezekiel chapter 16. In other words, God's holy, peculiar, special people now started forming relationships with these pagan nations, with these secular nations. For example, Babylon, the Assyrians. It actually began in the days of Solomon, when Solomon had 1,000 women in his life. Many of them because of alliances that he made with the surrounding nations. That's what the fornication was. Instead of Israel preserving herself only for the Lord, now Israel had other lovers, which were all of these nations with which she had illicit relationships. Notice Ezekiel chapter 16 and verse 26. You also committed harlotry. That word is in Ezekiel 16 all the time. You also committed harlotry with the Egyptians, your very fleshly neighbors, and increased your acts of harlotry to provoke me to anger. Notice chapter 16 and verse 28. It also says that she played the harlot with the Assyrians. It said, you also played the harlot with the Assyrians, because you were insatiable. Indeed, you played the harlot with them, still were not satisfied. In other words, Israel has all of these lovers. She can't get enough of these lovers from all of the nations. She's committing spiritual adultery. In other words, she's fornicating with the kings of the earth, if you please. She also fornicated with Chaldea, that is, with Babylon. Notice Ezekiel 16, verse 29. Moreover, you multiplied your acts of harlotry as far as the land of the traitor, Chaldea. And even then, you were not satisfied. She could not be satisfied. She wanted all of the nations of the earth to have illicit relationships with her. And she abandoned the husband of her youth. In fact, notice Ezekiel 16, verse 32. If you still don't believe that this is a relationship between a husband and a wife,